and thank you for listening in to Rolling with Your Special Friends podcast today. We have a very special guest with us, Mr. Seth Horn. We want to be able to tell his story today and tell you how a special young man he is, how much he loves basketball, water skiing, tennis, all these different things that he loves to do, but it's still much a better way to hear the story from him than to hear it from myself. So what I want to do is bring him in now and ask him a few questions about everyday life. So, Mr. Seth, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. All right. Well, Mr. Seth, tell us what Spina Bifida is.
It's a birth defect where your back is open, where your spine is. Like other kids, the back isn't open. And when your back is open, some of the nerves can be damaged.
Okay. Helps us understand things a little bit. Now, we understand that you love playing basketball and traveled all over the country playing it. Please tell us a little bit about how fun basketball is, maybe some of the rules of basketball.
Basketball is like my favorite sport to play. And I've traveled all over the country. I've traveled to North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Kentucky, Illinois, Nebraska, and Arizona.
Wow. Now, and we also understand you've won some awards playing basketball. Tell us about those.
I've won some multiple all-tournament team, multiple MVP of the tournament. I've won 3 years in a row. I've won leadership award for my team, and I won sportsmanship award in Phoenix, Arizona last year at a tournament.
Wow, and that's pretty cool now for somebody from Alabama to win a award like that in Arizona. That must mean you're really showing out over there. All right, so tell me some other things we understand you do is playing tennis. How is tennis from a wheelchair? Is it pretty tough?
It is, because you have to hold your racket and push around the court, but you get used to it. But the only rule difference is instead of only getting one bounce before you can hit it, or before it's dead, you get two bounces.
Two bounces, okay. Well, that's not too bad. Now, how long does the game last?
You usually play, it's same scoring, so it goes 15, 30, 40, and then if it's tied at 40, you go into deuce, and then it's first to win 2 points in a row.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty familiar to the original game, then. Not too many rule changes there. Tell me about, I also understand you love water skiing. Tell me about that a little bit. One, that's just super fun because everybody loves to water ski, but tell us what difference it is from sitting down and water skiing.
So you sit in this little cage thing I ski on one ski, but you can get these things where it keeps you from falling over.
Mm-hmm.
But I ski with one, so like I can go outside the wake, move around a little bit.
So now what you're talking about this cage, when you fall over, does it help you float, I guess?
When you fall over, you fall out of it, but it doesn't sink. It floats, so you can get back into it.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good thing to have, to be safe while you're out there on the water. Now, tell me a little bit about, too, I know everyday life for you is a little different. You do homeschooling at home instead of going to school. So tell me what homeschool's like.
It's pretty much the same as public school, but you can take extra breaks and you can take more time on subjects like math or science. If you don't understand it, you can take more time.
Okay. Well, and I guess having the teacher in front of you, you can ask a few more questions too, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad thing. And hopefully you're on good terms with your teacher so that you get bonus points and stuff, right?
Most of the time.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad thing. Now tell me too, that with being homeschool, I'm going to say that you're home a lot doing things. So tell me about what life is around the house in the chair. Like, cooking, taking out the trash, any chores you may have to do. Tell us about that.
You just adapt and figure out how you can do stuff. Like, we have to take the clothes from our room and bring them to the washer, and you basically kind of just push the hamper with your chair.
Well, that's not a bad thing. Now, does that hamper scuff up the floor?
Not too bad.
Okay, well, not too bad. Now tell me, do you do any cooking?
I'll cook. I like cooking eggs. I really like uh any breakfast foods.
So it's you feel like it's safe and easy to cook then from the chair?
Yes.
Good. Maybe folks out there listening that have these difficulties being able to think about how you're going to do things. Listen from this young man and know that it is possible that you can get out there and cook if you want to. Just be safe about it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell me now. I know you guys also go on a lot of trips. Tell me what things maybe you do to prepare to go on that trip. How do you get yourself ready?
I pack, and then like I'll take the bags from the house to the vehicle, and say like we're going to on a basketball tournament or something. I'll make sure we have room for both basketball chairs and my brother's everyday chair and our luggage.
Oh, wow. So you got a lot of packing to do then.
Yes.
All right. Well, last thing we're going to end with, and I know our viewers really love to hear this question a lot, is tell us 3 things that you love the most in your life.
Love spending time with family, spending time with Jesus, and playing basketball.
I don't know that the list gets any better than that. That's pretty good list there. Spending time with family, time with Jesus, and time with basketball. That's pretty cool. Well, we thank you for your time coming on today and talking to us. Can we talk to Mom for a little bit?
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good day, Mom.
Hey, how are you?
We're doing fine. We're going to start things off with you and tell us a little bit about Seth, just in general. What kind of person, what's his everyday personality like?
He has a very big heart. He loves very big. What I love about him is that he can lead confidently, but he can also follow just as confidently. If he sees a situation that he needs to lead, then he can do that, and he can do that well. If he sees that he's just going to need to be a follower in this situation, then he can do that as well too. And he does both beautifully. And I love that. That shows a lot about his character. I also love how, even though he's the younger brother, he is he takes good care of his brother. His brother needs a lot of encouragement and reminding and lots of things. And he's so good with him to make sure that he's taken care of, and he does it with such love and attention.
That's pretty special to have a kid like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Tell us the other thing that a lot of us would like to know, and a lot of the viewers out there also have asked, is when you get that word, when you're a young mother and expecting, and you get that word from a doctor that you're going to have a special child, what does that feel like?
I think about it like it's a grieving process. You have to move through this, and people that don't find out until they're having the baby, there's this grieving process that's happening alongside having the baby. For me, I found out at my ultrasound. And so I had, 2 or 3 months to come to grips with this, that I'm not going to have a normal birth. I'm not going to have a normal pregnancy. I'm not going to be able to do some of the things that most young moms want to happen. And so there's this grieving process of this normalcy that I'm not going to be able to do. And but with Seth, we already had one child with spina bifida. And so when we were pregnant with Seth, there was this unknown: is he going to have spina bifida or not? And so when we went into the ultrasound and they did say that he did have spina bifida, we were not like, devastated, because spina bifida, we knew that, but it was still like, how are we going to do this? Like how, and I think that's what everybody feels when they get that diagnosis, is how am I going to do this? like this grieving process and this asking yourself, how am I going to do this?
Wow. Well, then that's a good explanation to put us in your mindset of what you're thinking of how to walk yourself through that grieving process, as you call it, to get you maybe up to the first hurdle, because I'm sure as a young mother like that, it's hard to know what those hurdles are, but at least it gets you mentally to be ready for that type of thing. Tell us, after you've explained all of that, maybe what is some advice you would give a parent after you've came through this process and that grieving process, as you call it. What would you tell a parent to get ready for?
I would say my number one advice is to trust. Trust the process. Trust that if God brings you to this point and he chose you, because that's where I came to this point of that God chose me and my husband on this path, and to trust him, and that trust that God sees the big picture and that he sees what we need in our life and what we can handle and what he wants to bless us, because they have absolutely, both my boys, been a blessing to me. But in the very beginning, that's very hard to see. And so to just trust the process, trust God.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good advice, to be able to trust what's going on and know that it's all going to be okay. Tell us, in trusting that process and getting to, a mom and a family started off, tell us what they might, just give us the story of Seth and those first, 0 to 10 years, that baby stage there, to what a mom and parents might be expecting. Like, what was Seth like at that young age?
The first 3 years of Seth's life were probably the hardest in my whole entire life, and also in my marriage, because here we were with 2 kids under the age of 3 with special needs, and we were both in our early 20s. And so it was just a trying season. And because Seth started to have failure to thrive at 6 weeks old. And so we were given, we had a very sick 2-year-old at home. And then here we now have this infant who was having failure to thrive. And we were actually given the option that we're going to put him on a ventilator, and you can let him pass naturally and just let him be, or we can put a trach in. But they were very adamant that with this trach being placed, his quality of life would be extremely low. And that's just like the phrase that kept going through my head was quality of life. He would have a low quality of life. But then I went back to the whole, well, I trusted God, and I did believe that he gave me these boys for a reason. And so I was going to trust him, even if it meant that my child was going to have a trach permanently. But I serve a big God, and Seth got the trach put in at 6 weeks. And when he was 18 months old, he had reconstructive trachea surgery, and the trach was able to be removed. And from that point on, we just started playing catch up. Everything that we couldn't do from 6 weeks to 18 months old. Because if you think about when you have a trach, you can't talk, you can't do a lot of things. And so he was learning how to walk at the time with a walker. He was learning how to communicate. He was learning how to eat, which was a struggle too. But we just kept going, just kept on persevering, moving one step at a time. And then one day you look up and you go to the doctor, and the doctors are just like, what are y'all doing? How are your kids doing this well? And I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just taking it one day at a time, one step at a time, and making the best decisions that we know how to make. That's
pretty special to be able to walk through that process with that, just overwhelming faith. It's got to be a hard, taxing thing on a parent to be able to go day by day, just like they said, quality of life. Then you're thinking in your mind, like, can we do this? And then you walk out on the other side with a doctor over there saying, gosh, I don't even know how this is happening. That's amazing in itself. Now tell us, in all that process and everything you did and everything you come through, is there, for other families out there listening, is there anything, I don't necessarily say, we'll call them mistakes, but is there anything that you would change about that process? Is there something maybe you look back on it now and you go, okay, if I could tell another family, this is what I would recommend?
I would definitely think that I would categorize them more as life lessons. I think about it kind of like when you first get married and you're young and you make these decisions that maybe aren't the best decisions because you're just young. I mean, we had babies when we were young, and so you don't always make the best decisions, but they're your decisions and you have to own them. And so I wouldn't necessarily say any of them are bad. You just learn from all of your decisions. You learn whether it was good or whether it was bad. You just learn from them.
That's a good way to think about things. Now, tell us, when Seth goes out into what we'll call the real world, where everybody gets to see him out in the public, playing. I know in his basketball and tennis and other things, he's seeing other children that are familiar, similar to him. But when you go out in the real world and it's just you and the family and stuff, how is the normal public treating Seth? Is it seem to be any different?
It's hard. I mean, and especially on a mama's heart, you don't want anything bad for your child. But having, the two kids with a disability in a chair, we get lots of stares. I say that, we can't just walk into a room and be invisible because you walk into a room and you've got two kids in a wheelchair, and people stare, and that's hard for me when people stare. But then some people just come up to him and ask questions and are just genuinely happy to talk to him. And others are, staring and looking and but then we also have some people in our lives that they love Seth for Seth, and they don't even, his wheelchair is, not even a factor. He is just Seth, and that's beautiful. And they're better for that, and Seth's better for that.
That's what I really envision with myself, is seeing those kids the way they are, without the chair, without the crutches, without anything in their life, because everybody wants to be known as who they are, not what they have attached to them. I think Seth is just being around him and listening at his story so far. It's just amazing at the things he's able to do and the things that he has a great spirit for life, the way he wants to just get up and go. It doesn't seem like that the chair or the spina bifida has got anything to do with his world. It's just a, lack of a better word, something that's just he has to deal with, because he's going to go do what he wants to do either way.
I always joked when he was little because I was like, he doesn't know he's got spina bifida. Because he just does things that I'm like, you should not be able to just get up and do that. Do you not know that, my brain is saying, don't you know that you've got spina bifida and that should be an obstacle for you? But he doesn't look at it that way.
Now tell us, once we've got Seth past these young years, I know there's a lot of people out there listening that would love to know. He's getting on in there. He's 18, 19 years old, I think now. Tell us, in these teenage years, what spina bifida and a young teenage Seth is like.
I mean, the teenage years are hard. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I've got a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. But there is such a sweet spot to these teen years, because you're growing in your relationship. You're building that bond. It's not so much I need you for everyday function. It's just I need you. And topics, you're having to discuss hard topics, and school is hard and you have to persevere through that. And there was a quote that I loved that said, the days are long, but the years are short. And I feel that in my bones, that I just want to savor every single minute that they're with me, because I have a year and a half and both my kids will be graduated. And what does that look like? What does that season look like? Well, I'm going to go back to where I trusted God in the beginning. And so I'm going to trust him here. He's with me through the school is hard, and the relationships are hard, and the topics are hard. I'm going to be with him through that, and God's going to be with me.
Wow. Well, that's pretty powerful in itself, that you have that mindset to get yourself through these things. Now tell us also, we know that Seth is a big sports person and loves playing anything he can get on, water skiing, tennis, all this fun stuff. Tell us, as a parent, would you tell other parents out there, not only spina bifida, but just special parents in general, would you let us know the benefits of Seth being into sports, and would you recommend sports for other families?
I absolutely would. One of the things that's been huge for us is it's been a redemptive process for us because when my husband was growing up, he was very naturally athletic. And so when you have these kids with special needs, like I said earlier, that you grieve this process of normal. And so I just assumed that they're not going to play sports. And so maybe that's what we all kind of think. We just assume, hey, they're not going to be able to play sports. But then as Seth, got older and he started falling in love with basketball and falling in love with tennis and enjoying water skiing, I just realized he's naturally athletic. And so just because our children are special doesn't mean they can't be naturally athletic. And so being involved in sports helps them to be a teammate. It helps them to show how to treat each other. It helps them to with authority, the coach. And it also helps you to be in a communication in a group of people like families, moms, dads, parents, other teammates, and just being able to navigate those different paths of life together. And sports has been an avenue in order to do that. And that's not for every family, but it's given our family that's something normal that we had grieved, we had lost, but it's also a great exercise for our boys. And then also something super special about sports is that it has given Seth a dream to play college wheelchair basketball, which is something I could have never dreamed of.
And that's pretty important in itself, because you give a special child a chance for something to strive for, something to be able to achieve, something to hold their own, that they see other people on TV doing these same things, and they want to be that same guy. I know he and I have talked about players that he idolizes and looks up to and those type things, and I don't see any reason why he can't be that same guy. For that very situation of, now that you've said it would be a great thing to get those kids involved into sports and athletics, and what is it like to tell people that are listening out there to know, what is it like when your child gets that leadership award and that sportsmanship award of, like we asked him earlier, that all the way in Phoenix, Arizona, of all places, a kid from Alabama gets a leadership award. I mean, our sportsmanship award. How awesome is that as a parent to see that coming through?
I mean, it's almost like full circle. It's like you've been given this child, you've received this diagnosis, you just think, this is how my life's going to be. And then you just become full circle. And then when he called me and told me that he got this award, I was so overcome, because of any award that he could have won out in Arizona where people didn't even know him, they saw that he had good sportsmanship. And that makes the mama heart feel really good, that because I mean, what I want out of life is I want them to be able to grow up and be, members of society that are good people. And that was just confirmation that he can do it. And he's moving that direction.
Well, and that's pretty special to know that you got a child that loves his athletics, but then also, doesn't matter where you take Seth in the country, he's going to rub off on other people and show them what type of guy he is, and show them what kind of love he has for just genuinely helping out other people. And that's a trait that a lot of people wish they had, that they could get out there and show others, how great it could be. And he's obviously thriving at doing that, winning awards, doing very well in the basketball, the tennis. I think everything he's competed in, from what I understand, he's done well in. He hasn't just played, he's thrived at it. And for a dad to have that kind of skill set, pretty good as an athlete, then to see his son that way, that's got to be pretty heartwarming for dad as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So let's shift gears just a little bit, and from the sports thing, let's try to be able to put our viewers into the mind and the listeners into the mind of a mama that's seeing Seth every day and how he participates in all these different activities and the things he does. And let's step outside that traditional box and let's tell us something funny or something crazy, a story about Seth that's just everyday off the wall kind of thing that we're out here listening to. We'd love to hear.
Most people don't get, Seth's pretty reserved. Like he doesn't, I mean, he can laugh and he can cut up, but he's not your, just life of the party, But I love it when he tells this story of when he went turkey hunting and he says, yeah, I went turkey hunting and I killed 3 turkeys. And everybody's like, oh, that's awesome. And he goes, and 2 of them were decoys.
Oh my God.
So I just love that funny part of his personality that don't always come out, but it's just, sometimes it's there and it just, knocks you off your feet because he's just so funny.
Now, is there anything you can think of too in the sports side of things that's been a funny story? Maybe a shot over the basketball goal or that fell out of the chair or anything funny like that?
What do you think?
I've shot over the goal plenty of times and I fell over plenty.
So we fell out of the chair plenty of times, huh?
Yeah.
And it's nothing to worry about then. So no families out there should be worried about if you fall out. Just get back up and go again, right? That's
right. When you're around wheelchair basketball mamas, if somebody falls out of that chair, we're not going to be like, oh my gosh, they fell out of the chair. Like we're all just waiting for them to get right back up and do it because, people will come to watch and they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, they're fine. They're fine. They're going to get right back up, So yeah, they'll get up.
That's pretty good that the mamas have been there and been able to see that before and know that it's not, because I know a lot of mamas out there be, like you said, gasping for air, like, oh my gosh, my baby's on the ground. But it's just one of those things. You get a little tough and you get out there and get to play like everybody else. So I think we want to wrap this thing up with what we call our signature question here for Rolling with Our Special Friends podcast. And what we like to ask everybody that comes on, and especially the parents, when we close this book, of Seth one day and things are over with, what would you hope that we as listeners and viewers out here are able, what does that book read like? What do you want Seth's life book to read?
I would love for it to read in him living out his God-given purpose, because when we chose to put the trach in, we knew that God had given Seth a purpose, and we don't know that purpose, but God does. And so I hope the book of Seth reads in him living out God's given purpose, and that I hope that he loves people well. He continues to love people well because he does that so well now. And I hope that he loves God above anything else.
Well, that's pretty well said, to have a book that would state things like that about you. And we appreciate the opportunity to get you guys on and be able to listen to the story of Seth, and hope anybody that's out there listening can take into your mind and picture yourself being Seth and being out there in that ski boat, in that tennis court, in that basketball court, and just enjoying life in general and going on these trips with families and joining trips. Just let everybody know that there is an opportunity out there, that guys like Seth pick it up every day, being special, and just roll right on without any problems. And that's one of the main reasons we call this Rolling with Our Special Friends, because we just try to roll through life no matter what life throws at us. So thank you guys for coming on, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right.